Welcome to Impact News, and thanks for joining me this week for all the stories that are making the news over the last week. We bring them to you. Okay, first of all, we got to start with Jackson, Mississippi. Okay, as we all know, Jackson, Mississippi's water system is an absolute disgrace. That's right, folks. Funds sent to Mississippi by the feds. We know what happened to that money. That money was used to shore up mostly white suburbs instead of 82% black Jackson. It's been going on for decades. And folks, now the chickens have come home to roost, all right? The crisis surged back in the summer of 2022. You remember that. The residents were left without clean water for months. We still don't know how many people died as a result of that. In November, the Department of Justice appointed a federal manager to take over the water utility. Then a month later, the feds approved $600 million exclusively for the city's water system. So what do you think is going on in good old Mississippi with the good old boys? Folks, guess what? Because we all know this is really all about money. That's all this is about, okay? For those who live outside of Jackson, Mississippi, in those gleaming suburbs, gleaming, beautiful suburbs, folks, because of course they've gotten all the water from Jackson and used it to shore up their areas. Okay, now state and city leaders are clashing over who should control that $600 million, folks. State politicians, and we know we can trust them, right? Just ask Jackson. All right, state politicians want that money. These are the same state officials, do not forget this, that are involved in the welfare scandal involving the misappropriation of roughly $77 million. Now they want another $600 million to line their pockets with gold. Remember, folks, Brett Favre is accused in this $77 million misappropriation scandal that took money from the Federal Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, the TANF program. That money was meant for poor people, and reportedly he used it to build a volleyball building. Oh yes, oh, it's deep. It is the largest corruption case in Mississippi state history, and they actually can turn around and argue that they should get another $600 million, and somebody has the nerve to take that seriously. I don't think so. Now Mississippi wants to create a new Regional Water Authority Board to oversee the system's water, also the sewer and the drainage systems. We all know what that means. The governor, oh, that Tate Reeves, the governor and lieutenant governor would appoint a majority of the board. Well, we know that because how else are they going to get that money, okay? The fox wants to guard the hen house. The answer is no. The feds better step in on this one. Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves and his minions are apparently skeptical about whether Jackson, the Black City, is capable of managing its own affairs. Well, we know the state can't manage its own affairs because it let $77 million get away, money meant for poor people. Brett Favre and all them potentially involved, they let that get away. They're concerned about whether Jackson can manage its money. Give Jackson the money instead of taking it and giving it to the suburbs. Trust me, they know what to do with it, okay? Federal agencies, including the Justice Department and the Environmental Protection Agency, have also questioned the city's management of its water and wastewater systems. Get real, feds. The water never hit Jackson. We know where that water went. Jackson Mayor Chokwe Lumumba said, quote, and I quote, "It is a colonial power taking over our city. It is plantation politics," unquote. Folks, the feds better do the right thing. You know why? Because that's our money. That's my money. I don't even live in Mississippi. That's your money. That money goes to Mississippi, and make sure it's in Mississippi to fix that water system so those residents don't have any more problems. That, folks, is your commentary. And so stay with me because I got your news after that. Stay with me. Thanks for staying with me for your news. Of course, I bring you the stories from all around the neighborhood and, of course, all around the world. Folks, we're going to begin with some silliness, okay? We're going to Clemson University. Oh, yes, Clemson University. That's right, folks. They held an affirmative action bake sale. Ever heard of that one? That's right. It's with cookie prices that were based on the buyer's race. I mean, these are kids, and it's pathetic that their parents have taught them that this is okay to demean others. All right, now, it happened on the first day of Black History Month because, you know, they're so disrespectful and really just so ignorant that they just can't help themselves. All right, apparently the event was hosted by Turning Point USA. You've heard of that group, folks. It's a conservative advocacy group that has been linked with racism all over the country. Now, a now viral video. It shows three smiling white students standing next to a large sign that shows prices for cookies on a race-based scale. Folks, $1.50 for Asian buyers. That's the top price. $1 for white buyers, okay? 50 cents for Hispanic buyers and 20 cents for Black buyers. That's right, folks. And Native Americans, well, they got free cookies. Isn't that disgraceful? That's a university, and the students there seem to me to be quite ignorant. And of course, they're probably banning books somewhere in there. So if you're sending your kids to college, I would suggest that you look at a school that's other than Clemson. They just don't have it together there. And I'm sure it's bleeding into other aspects of the curriculum because they allow this silliness to go on. All right, let's go to African Americans. They are leaving New York City in droves, folks. In New York City, the number of non-Hispanic Black residents, well, it's declined by more than 125,000 people in the last 20 years. That's more than a 6% decline, folks. That includes continental Africans and Black West Indians. Okay, looking at the reasons for this, let's just take a look at jobs, folks. We know how that goes. The city's economy has added more high-paying jobs, but African American New Yorkers overall have seen limited job opportunities, limited economic gains, and the job opportunities compared to other groups. Black and brown New Yorkers are underrepresented in accessible middle wage jobs as well. We're talking about jobs in food manufacturing and even jobs in doctors' offices. What is wrong with these people? From 2014 to 2018, Black workers earned 2/3, oh yes, 2/3 of white workers' average annual salaries. And that's okay? I don't think so. Leave. There's better places to go. In New York City, incomes for African Americans have remained stagnant, even as those of other racial and ethnic groups are increasing. That's not an accident. Okay, let's keep going. Let's go to hip-hop legend E40. Yes, sir, donating $100,000 to his alma mater. That would be Grambling State University. He's supporting the HBCU's music education programs. Now, the rapper's real name is Earl Stevens. That $100,000 endowment's going to go towards the maintenance of a newly constructed on-campus recording studio there at the Louisiana institution, and to support education focused initiatives within the school's sound technology program. All right, don't try to sell our rappers short. Okay, they're doing it. Let's move on. New U.S. Get this one. New U.S. Census standards would add a Middle Eastern and North African category to the census. Now, that's Middle Eastern and North African. Okay, the objective is to give North Africans their identity as distinct from whites. Yeah, okay. This is when the chickens come home to roost and everybody gets to be in their own identity, and then white America sees we all have to work together because there's nobody here who's really a majority. Okay. Previously, they've been encouraged to identify as white. Now, also, there could be changes made to how Hispanics are able to self-identify. The federal government standards and categories haven't been changed since 1997. All right, now. Then let's look at the environment, folks. The Great Salt Lake in Utah, folks, it's drying up and it's very serious. It's roughly 8 to 9 feet lower than it should be. The Great Salt Lake is the largest remaining saltwater lake in the Western Hemisphere, and it's drying up. Okay, pay attention, all right? It's all due to climate change and rapid population growth. I wouldn't be moving to Utah if I were you. Utah is one of the fastest growing states and also one of the driest, and now the lake's drying up. Scientists say if no action is taken, the Great Salt Lake could go dry. Are you ready for this? In 5 years. Think about that when you're buying property. The environmental consequences of a dried up lake, folks, they're very, very far reaching, such as dust storms. Okay, what's a little dust storm? We can survive that. Well, get this. The Great Salt Lake has high concentrations of neurotoxins and cancer-causing carcinogens, including arsenic and mercury. That's what's in that lake bed. Okay, so imagine that dust blowing into your neighborhood on a regular basis. That's right, folks. The majority of Utah's 3.3 million people, guess what? They live near that lake. So it is serious over there in Utah. All right, then a new report has found that significant social change is needed to halt catastrophic climate change. This is social change. That means you got to change your habits and the way you do things, okay? Society simply isn't changing fast enough. Germany's University of Hamburg released a report. It includes data from over 140 countries. The study found it unlikely that temperature increase could be kept below the 2015, 7 years ago, 2015 red line. We know the president, those 4 years, Donald Trump, he just totally did nothing, and we're all in trouble. All right, and that's even with tough emissions cuts. So we're in for some real drama, folks. All right, then let's go to Arizona. Deep red, in a deep red corner of Arizona. See, these deep red people, they're worried about what color is your skin, whether or not you should read a book, all that kind of silliness. And meanwhile, Rome is burning while Nero is fiddling, particularly that Nero down in Florida. I mean, he is a joke. But let's stay in Arizona. In a deep red quarter of Arizona, water problems are made even worse by corporate mega farming in rural areas. Folks, local officials in Kingman, Arizona, folks, they say uncontrolled agricultural growth means residents' own faucets will soon run dry. And we've done an Arizona report, so you know some of them are already dry, okay? Every year, enough water to fill 22,500 Olympic-sized swimming pools is being pumped out of the aquifer that serves Kingman. That's more than 4 times, okay, 4 times the amount naturally replenished each year. So if you take 4 times what's naturally replenished each year, how long do you think it's going to take before it's all gone? This is not rocket science, okay? Corporate mega farms pumped 60 to 72% of the groundwater used there in Kingman as of 2021, okay? We're talking orchards, nut orchards, dairy operations, and foreign-owned alfalfa farms that send their feed overseas. Go farm it overseas, okay? These farms have tons of cash. They can come in, and when the water starts running dry, they just install well after well after well because it's so expensive now to dig deeper to find more water. And the state does not have the authority to even track how much water each of these farms are pumping. County officials say at least 15 large-scale agricultural wells exist, and folks, these wells, believe this, can pump over 4 million gallons of groundwater a day. Yes. In Kingman alone, corporate farms have collectively purchased about 77,000 acres of land, about 8,400 of which is currently being cultivated. Now, I'm going to tell you something. 8,400 is being cultivated, and look what it's already doing. Now, you let them cultivate any more of those acres, and we are in trouble. Trouble. Oh, my goodness. All right, let's go to the U.S. power grid. It is extremely vulnerable to domestic extremist groups, a.k.a. white supremacists, who think America belongs to them and only to them. That and America's unwillingness to see these white supremacists for who they are and really take them to a task, and it is a huge problem. You remember last year they shot up 2 power stations in Moore County there in North Carolina. They left 45,000 people without power, homes and businesses without power. In 2022, we should tell you there were 25 actual physical attacks reported on power facilities across the U.S. Compare that to 2021, where there were only 6, so they are accelerating and escalating. Here's what the extremists say, and I quote, "The main thing that keeps the anti-white system going is the power grid, calling power stations sitting ducks and worthy prey." These people are sick. Why is there no central authority that regulates the entire power system, which means take Texas and connect it to the power system? We need federal regulators overseeing the high voltage system that brings power across long distances. Let's put that stuff and stop these extremists. Let's take a look at the diaspora. American Airlines is suspending 2023 summer service from Miami to Bermuda. The Minister of Transport there in Bermuda says it's very disappointed with the decision, but we want you to know you could still get there. Bermuda will have expanded service to other major airports with United Airlines service from Newark. That starts next month. And then JetBlue's new daily seasonal service from New York begins in May. So unfortunately, American Airlines is going to lose out on that one. Let's go to Africa, where more than 11,000 Nigerians and 17 institutions, including churches and schools, are filing damages claims against Shell in the London courts, okay? The claim says oil spills resulting from Shell's operations in the Niger Delta have destroyed the farms, contaminated the drinking water, and harmed aquatic life. This case is very important, folks, because it's going to test whether multinationals can be held to account for their actions of their overseas subsidiaries. Shell is one of the world's biggest energy companies. Now, apparently, Shell oil spills in that Niger Delta, they have destroyed those farms. The water is all contaminated, the drinking water, and the aquatic life, as I said, has been harmed. The average life expectancy, are you ready for this? In that region, it's 41 years, and that's 10 years lower than the national average. That's very low. Shell ought to be ashamed, but we know they're not, which is why they have to be sued and regulated. All right, then fake medicines are killing almost 500,000 sub-Saharan Africans every year. Folks, in sub-Saharan Africa, as many as 267,000 deaths per year are linked to falsified and substandard anti-malarial medications. You should also know about 170,000 are linked to falsified and substandard antibiotics that are used to treat severe pneumonia in children. Seriously? Serious, no shame in your game. The products often come from China, Belgium, France, and India. I'm Carol Angela Davis. Those are your stories. Stay with me. You know, I'll be back with Ask Dr. K, the international report, the slave word missing, and your financial news, because we just got to know what's happening with the money. Stay with me. Okay, time to level up that vocab. Self-improvement, as we know, is always the way to go. The slave word of the week is eleemosynary. Yeah, I know. I'm going to spell it for you. I actually have to check to spell this one. Eleemosynary. Yeah, that is eleemosynary. That's the word we're talking about, folks. It is an adjective. You know what that means. It just modifies or describes that noun. First used in 1616, all right, the definition is of, relating to, or supported by charity, which is fantastic. Here are your sentences. He used his vast fortune for establishing and funding a host of eleemosynary institutions. Thank you for that. Sentence number 2. We need more eleemosynary institutions to help kids get the technology they need to be successful. That, folks, is your slave word of the day, eleemosynary, of, relating to, or supporting charity. Stay with me.
Anyone who thinks that slavery ended in the 1860s with the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation are grievously wrong.
If we caught a bird, we ate through the feathers and ate the bird. We didn't have nothing to cook on. We didn't have no stove.
You know who you are and who we are.
We're still on that big plantation.
She was bonded to them until they died. She was their slave.
They said, well, we're going to be killed tonight.
Could that same white dude keep terrorists there? Or Russian spies? Or the KGB? And the government wouldn't know it? No.
They thought I was beat so bad that I couldn't do nothing, but I did.
Where are you? We're out there looking for our black girls, and they are missing, and we have to find them, and with your hope, we will. 13-year-old Mercedes Crumpton was last seen on a Friday on the west side of Chicago, Illinois. She was spotted in the 800 block of South Keeler Avenue. Mercedes regularly wears a black dress and black furry sandals. She has a scar on her nose and wears long braids. Mercedes is 5'5". She weighs 100 pounds and has brown eyes and black hair. Please call Chicago police with any information about Mercedes Crumpton. Mercedes Crumpton, where are you? We want you to know we are looking for you. And with the help of our audience, we're going to find you. We're here with your international report with Dr. Inyang Abong Harstrup. And she's going to, of course, as you know, this is how you stay abreast of what's going on in the world. And we got to know what's going on. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you, Carol. I wanted to talk today about the earthquake, which has dominated our headlines since Monday. It was a 7.8 magnitude earthquake which struck southern Turkey in the early hours of Monday and was followed by more than 100 aftershocks. And then a second earthquake at 7.5 on the Richter scale. So right now we have about 11,000 people dead. But I think what's really interesting to me is the way that aid is getting to these crises. We forget that Syria was in a very, very bad state of civil war, etc. Just because we've heard nothing on the news does not mean that it's gone away. So what has happened in this earthquake is that all the countries like Canada, US, and so forth are giving money to Syria, to Turkey, but nothing to Syria. And on top of that, the Syrian government is saying, if you want to give anything, it has to come through Damascus. And people know that when things come through Damascus, they are not sent to the areas that need them because they're under different rebel commands.
But Bashar Assad has a terrible reputation.
Terrible.
But the people are suffering because they're always suffering because of him.
Terrible. And the United States said, because they, of course, the Syrians, Assad, has said they should lift the sanctions. And the United States said, no can do. Not after the way you've treated your people, gas them, burn them, kill them. We're not really lifting the sanctions. So really, everything is going to Turkey. But you can imagine the poor women and children and men that have suffered from this catastrophe on Monday are going to be in real dire straits.
Well, you know, Eni, and as we learned in the United States, you know, leadership actually counts. Be careful how you pick your leaders or let them stay in office. Thank you so much, Dr. Inyang Ebong Herstrom. Of course, she's your international specialist, and I thank you for tuning in. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with me. I got your financial news. You know these stories are important because we have to understand the flow of the cash money, baby. Okay. A new study says side hustles are twice as common as U.S. jobs data suggests. Nearly 10% of workers reported having a main job plus at least one other side gig. That's according to a work from home study done by economists. Now, this indicates that more Americans need to work multiple jobs to make ends meet amid historically high inflation. And we all know that because every time you go to the grocery store, the packaging is smaller and the price is bigger, and we're getting tired of it. Okay? All right, let's move on. The producer price index declined 0.5% for the month. Now, the producer price index measures what businesses pay for goods and services, so we're glad to see that go down. Higher producer prices mean consumers will pay more when they buy. Lower producer prices likely mean consumers will pay less at the retail level. That's if greed doesn't intervene. All right, you should also know that the consumer price index, it also declined, this time by 0.1% in December. That's good news for us because it gauges the prices that consumers pay at the marketplace. And we know greed is a big factor in this mess. Okay. And then finally, get this, we're going to travel to Grenada, where a British family that descended from slave owners, they actually are going to pay 100,000 pounds to the country, not Grenadians themselves, but the country of Grenada, because they think that's going to make up for slavery. Ooh, see, I'll tell you, they all got rich off of those slaves. In the 1800s, a Trevelyan family's ancestors had more than 1,000 slaves and owned 6 sugar plantations. Folks, they got to be wicked rich by now. All that free labor for all those years, and they took all the money, and they're going to put 100,000 pounds on the table for Grenada? I don't think so. Y'all got to do better than that. You owe Grenada a lot more than that, okay? So in 1834, the Trevelyan's received 34,000 pounds in 1834, okay, for the loss of their property. That would be slaves in Grenada. Now imagine if somebody gave you 34,000 pounds just today. Just today. Come on now. The family intends to donate the 100,000 to establish a community fund for economic development. I'm glad to have some money, but look, folks, they call that seed money. That's all that is, because that really can't do that much. We all know that. One family member told the BBC the experience saying that she had gone to the plantation. She saw the plantation where her ancestors held the slaves, and it had been really horrific for her, that she felt ashamed on seeing the plantations where slaves were punished and the instruments of torture that were used to restrain them. And we're glad that she had that visceral reaction, because slavery was really horrible. But 100,000 pounds and y'all made all that money, you gotta do better than that. That pain that you can't stand feeling because of what your ancestors did, imagine the pain felt in Grenada for generations who cannot feed their families or having a difficult time. Those are your stories, folks. That's your financial news. Stay with me, I'll be right back.
I'm just sick and tired of us not spending time together lately.
I know, baby. I know. I'm sorry I ain't been spending time with you. I just been working on this big deal. It's gonna bring a lot more money to the household for it.
What you doing here, boss? Yeah, just checking to see if you still got it.
You take this work. Your partner. I don't want it back.
I've seen the movies, man. I know how this goes.
You see the movies, huh? Did you see Goodfellas? New Jack City?
Everything I do is for you. Like, I just need a little bit more time, man. Fine bullshit. Like I said, he's gonna call any second.
Why don't you take a look at this video? Guess what? It's starring you.
Okay, we're back at you. You know, we close out the show with your help. So here we are with Dr. K. Welcome, Dr. K.
Thanks for having me. I have my red on for Heart Health Month, and I want to take this opportunity to talk about heart health, brain health, kidney health, because it's all related to the same thing. And in this month where we're focusing on our heart, let's focus on everything. So the prevention of all of this lies in our everyday food choices as well as our lifestyle. The whole foods plant-based diet, avoiding meat, avoiding dairy, avoiding the middle aisle, and getting 150 minutes of exercise per week at a minimum, and supplementing with vitamin D. That's 3 things will really, really prevent chronic disease. The whole foods plant-based diet gives us what we need, how we need it, in the dose that we need it. So the kidneys, like the heart and like the brain, contain blood vessels. High blood pressure weakens them, causes them to underperform. Diabetes scars them, and cholesterol clogs them. So the same things that are causing diseases everywhere else in the body are ruining our kidneys. In addition to these factors, a lot of high blood pressure medications have a negative effect on kidney function. So we really want to control our weight. Obesity makes everything work harder and opens us up to these diseases. And we want to save our kidneys. Like the heart, like the brain, the kidneys cannot be regenerated. So once they decrease in function and fail, there's nothing we can do but dialysis. And we don't want to get to that point. By the time normal lab values that show that there's a problem with our kidneys, half the kidney function has already been gone. So people, let's show our heart some love this month. Let's show our kidneys some love. And let's really think about everyday food choices, getting exercise every day, taking our vitamin D, and just living a nice long life.
Thank you so much, Dr. K. Real quick, about if you can answer as quickly as you possibly can. You talk about obesity. It's really hard to control obesity with all this crap in the food.
Yeah. Yes, it's
chemicals.
It's very difficult, but people, we've got to give it the college try. You know, take your fruit snacks with you, stay out of the middle aisle, stay out of the drive-through, because it's actually critical for our longevity and maintaining a normal weight. And in the African American community, they've adjusted the BMI tables to fit the fact that we are a little bit heavier, but we still must maintain a normal weight. It may be heavier than some other cultures, but it's healthy.
For us,
Yes.
it's healthy and normal.
For us, it's healthy and normal. Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. K. Now, you know, come on now, pay attention, because she's going to keep you alive if you just pay attention and get out that middle aisle. I'm Carol Angela Davis. Thank you, Dr. K.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. From all of us here at Impact News, we thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.